You ever die mad? I don't mean sad or panicked, I mean furious. Because that's exactly how I went out, grumbling like a maniac about the wrong shipment of imported paprika. There I was, standing outside my apartment in my socks, waving the air like a budget wizard, yelling after a delivery truck that had just dropped off 12 kilograms of industrial-strength cayenne instead of the paprika I ordered. Do I look like a spice cartel? I remember shouting that. It was probably my last sentence on Earth. Then I turned and got flattened by a truck. Boom. Instant. One moment I'm cursing logistics, the next I'm floating in darkness, my last thoughts seasoned with regret and chili powder. But just as I was preparing for whatever comes after, something weird happened. Then I heard a voice. Huh, this one's got decent mana threads. Good cooking affinity too. Close enough, let's pull him. The voice didn't sound divine. It sounded like someone trying to fix a vending machine with a crowbar. Suddenly, a hook I couldn't see latched onto my soul, yanked hard, and reality rewrote itself. I opened my eyes to find trees. Lots of them. Birds chirping, a breeze that smelled like pine, wet moss, and… was that butter? Also, there was a wooden spoon floating over my chest, glowing, slowly spinning. And below it, burned into the grass like a welcome mat from hell, Divine Tavern System initializing. Please wait. I blinked, sat up slowly, felt the dirt under my fingers. This wasn't a dream, or if it was the most inconvenient one possible. I patted my chest, my arms, my legs. Still 30-ish, still me. Just now in a loose tunic and trousers that smelled vaguely like rosemary. And no shoes. Great. The floating spoon dinged. Tavern system bonded. Leon Halcroft. Primary skill, dimensional pantry. Active. Current EXP, 0. Current reputation, 0. Current location, somewhere probably unsafe. There were no instructions, no manual, just a smell of roasted garlic drifting from nowhere and the creeping realization that I'd somehow been hired by a divine POS system to run a tavern in a fantasy world. And I didn't even apply. Okay, I said to no one. Let's recap. Dead? Check. Truck? Still mad about it. Reincarnated? Technically. Magical cooking job? Apparently. Location? Unknown pine-scented danger zone. And somehow, I was weirdly calm about all this. Maybe because I was used to chaos. I used to manage inventory and shipments for a restaurant that supplied 12 restaurants and 2 picky influencers. You haven't known stress until a micro-celebrity tells you their imported Wagyu was emotionally inconsistent. I looked around. The forest was quiet. A little too quiet. Then I heard it. A low growl. Something massive moved between the trees. Branches snapped, leaves rustled. My spine made that little uh-oh twitch. And from the shadows stepped a creature the size of a car. Silver fur bristling, eyes like molten gold. It looked like a direwolf, and it did not look impressed. I froze. The spoon floated beside me like a useless sidekick. Then the wolf took a step forward and sniffed the air. Its ears twitched. It blinked. Its massive head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring again. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Then it stopped, looked directly at me, and let out the softest, most confused sound I've ever heard from a death beast. bark? He didn't attack right away. The giant silver-furred wolf just stood there, half-shadowed beneath the canopy, sniffing the air like it was trying to remember something important. Then it growled, low and long. I slowly raised my hands like that would somehow help. No sudden moves, no loud noises, nope. Emergency system notification. Low hostility detected. Recommended action, offer food. Oh, great. I'm about to get eaten and the divine system wants me to offer him a snack? Somewhere deep in the back of my mind, my instinct screamed to run, but then the scent hit me again. Roasted garlic, fresh bread, a little sizzle of butter in a pan. And suddenly, I had an idea so dumb it might just work. Okay, big guy, I muttered, taking a shaky step back from the spoon still hovering near my face. Let's see if you eat before you maul me. I focused on the only active skill that had popped up earlier. Dimensional Pantry. Active. And just like that, a tiny screen flickered to life in front of me, like a holographic menu board. I scrolled. My pantry inventory was bizarre. 1 pack of Earth-grade salted butter, 3 vacuum-sealed Wagyu cuts, 2 bags of instant garlic rice, 1 cast iron skillet, 1 portable stove. Wait, I had a portable stove? I tapped it and poof, a tiny stubby little burner manifested on the grass next to me. Sif's ears perked. His glowing eyes narrowed like he was watching the opening act of something very confusing. I grabbed the pan, lit the burner, and slapped in a chunk of butter. Sizzle! The smell hit immediately. Rich, golden, creamy. The butter started bubbling with a perfect hiss. I dumped in the garlic rice, flipped the mix with muscle memory from 1,000 late-night cravings, and then gently sliced the Wagyu over the top. The meat seared on contact. Fat crackled. I tossed in a dash of salt and pepper, stirred once, and turned the heat down. Sif stepped closer, still growling, but this time it sounded less like "I'll kill you" and more like "you better not burn that." I took a deep breath, scooped the hot, steaming mix onto a simple wooden plate the system coughed up, and slowly set it down in front of him. Then I backed up and held my hands up. All right, buddy. You kill me, I haunt you. You eat that, maybe we can be civil. Sif stared at the food, then at me, then at the food again. He took a cautious step, then another. Then he ate. No, scratch that. He devoured it. Mouth open, jaw working like a silent machine, bits of garlic rice flying everywhere, tail twitching with visible satisfaction. He even licked the plate clean. Then he looked up at me, stared for 3 full seconds, and let out a low, quiet grunt. Oof. Then he turned and, instead of walking away, circled once, flopped down next to me, and rested his massive head on his paws like a house pet who just finished Thanksgiving dinner. System update. Sif has accepted your offering. Beast bond initiated. Sif has become your familiar. Title acquired. The one who feeds. I blinked, then blinked again. The massive direwolf next to me let out a heavy sigh, rolled onto his side, and muttered the tiniest snore. I looked at the spoon still hovering nearby. Are you seriously telling me I just adopted a monster because I cooked him garlic rice? The spoon did not answer, but the system did. Level up, tavern rank, F rank to E rank. I felt a faint warm glow in my chest. My back stopped hurting, my head cleared. I even smelled faintly like rosemary again. Sif shifted beside me and grunted softly in his sleep. I had no idea what kind of world I'd been dragged into. No map, no money, no idea where the nearest town was. But I had a spoon that floated, a pantry full of enchanted ingredients, and a direwolf the size of a horse currently drooling on my leg. Could be worse. Part 3. I sat in the middle of a mossy clearing next to a sleeping direwolf who was probably worth more than a small army. By the way, I realize I never told you how I ended up calling him Sif. It was the first name that popped into my head when I looked at him. Sharp, ancient, proud. He seemed to like it, or at least he didn't bite me, which I took as approval. So Sif it was. And he was snoring. Not loud, not aggressive, just little rumbles that shook the ground every few seconds. I could feel it through the grass under my hands. So I had a familiar now. A big one. And apparently all it took was garlic rice and Wagyu beef. I looked up at the glowing system spoon floating nearby. It hovered for a moment like it was thinking, then pinged again. System update. Tavern site placement unlocked. Minimum requirement met. You did not die. Secondary requirement met. Local apex beast bonded. A simple text followed. Choose your starting tavern location. Then 3 options faded into view. Option 1. Abandoned roadside shrine. Pros: existing structure, good luck bonus, minor divine protection. Cons: haunted by 3 mildly dramatic ghosts. Option 2. Old hunter's camp near a river. Pros: easy access to fish and water. Cons: smells like raccoon pee and failure. Option 3. Middle of this exact forest clearing. Pros: flat land, no rent. Cons: you'll have to build everything yourself, like from sticks. I stared at the options, then at Sif. Haunted ghosts? I muttered. I've barely recovered from my death. I don't need 3 floating drama queens moaning over their unfinished business while I'm stirring soup. Sif opened one eye, grunted. Close it again. That's what I thought, I said. I picked option 2, the river camp. A flash of light blinked across the clearing. System response. New tavern site locked in. Riverbend camp. Would you like to teleport now? I hesitated. Then remembered I had no tent, no shoes, and one very full-bellied direwolf about to snore his way into a food coma. Yeah, sure. Beam me up, Spoon. The world blinked. We reappeared in a small, overgrown camp by a river. There was an old fire pit, a few logs for sitting, and yes, it did smell faintly like something had once died here. But honestly, not bad. The sun hit the water just right. Birds chirped, and there was even a half-broken wooden shelter leaning against a tree. No raccoons in sight. Sif sniffed the air once, sat down, nodded like a king inspecting a minor outpost. System update. Tavern site registered. Riverbend camp. Tavern rank E. Customer limit 5 per day. Auto-generated name? The Hungry Howl. Wait, what? The Hungry Howl, I raised an eyebrow. Sif gave me a side eye. Really? You eat 1 meal and now the whole restaurant's about you? He huffed, then licked his paw like he didn't care. I looked up. System rename tavern. New prompt appeared. Name your tavern. I thought for a long moment, then typed, The Wayfarer's Rest. System approved. Tavern name changed. Welcome, proprietor Leon Halcroft. May your tables be full and your guests not try to stab you. Encouraging, I muttered. The next hour was, honestly, kind of peaceful. The system offered some beginner tools, a folding table, a small rack of wooden bowls, a basic cookpot. My pantry access remained the same, though it hinted that the more people I served, the more I'd unlock. So far, so good. Then I heard shouting. Distant, male, angry. I turned toward the sound just in time to see 2 humans sprinting out of the woods, both rough-looking, armored, and covered in sweat. And they were hauling my still materializing food cart behind them. You have got to be kidding me, I said flatly. Sif stood up. One of the guys looked back. What is that? He shrieked. The other didn't answer. He tripped over a root and landed flat on his face. Sif didn't pounce. He didn't roar. He just calmly walked over, stared down at the fallen man, and exhaled through his nose. The guy fainted. I walked over and grabbed the food cart's handle, gently pulled it back. Thanks, I said to Sif. Good boy. He huffed again. The second thief, still conscious, looked between me and the wolf like we were hallucinations. I thought it was abandoned. The shrine said no one owned this forest anymore. Do you see a shrine here? No? Exactly. Now run. He didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his unconscious buddy by the legs and vanished into the trees like his life depended on it. To be fair, it kinda did. System message. Tavern security test passed. Sif's loyalty increased. New title unlocked. Forest proprietor. New item unlocked. Beginner's recipe book. Now we're talking. Part 4. By the time the sun dipped low behind the trees, I'd finished setting up my first real workspace. A wooden table with a burn-marked sheep like a duck, 4 uneven stools, 1 food cart, and a dire wolf that looked like a silver statue guarding a royal gate. It wasn't much, but it was mine. System prompt. Tavern now open. Day 1 daily cap 5 guests. Reputation 0. Food sales 0. Disastrous caused also 0. That last line felt a little unnecessary, but I appreciated the optimism. Sif lay by the fire, tail flicking lazily. Alright, I said aloud, half to him and half to myself. Let's see who shows up. I didn't expect much, but apparently forest gossip spreads fast, or maybe divine tavern systems come with magical marketing, because just as I lit the lantern, I heard voices and footsteps. 2 travelers emerged from the path. One was a tall man with a crossbow on his back, the other a woman in merchant robes dragging a small cart of goods. They paused when they saw the sign glowing faintly above the camp. The Wayfarer's Rest. That wasn't here yesterday. Doesn't matter, smells amazing, the woman replied. That was me. I had just grilled some skewered mushrooms and buttered bread to warm up the space. Evening, I called, putting on my best welcoming smile. Hungry? They exchanged a look, then stepped forward. Sif growled. The man stopped cold. That's a wolf? A very full, very lazy wolf. Unless you steal my cookware, then he turns into judgment and fury. The merchant woman tilted her head. What's his name? Sif. She blinked. Isn't that the name of a goddess? I shrugged. Now it's also the name of the guy who drools in his sleep and guards the stew pot. Sif made a low noise that may have been a protest. I served them a simple meal. Grilled mushroom skewers brushed with honey garlic glaze, fresh cut vegetable soup with a touch of fire pepper, and to drink magically chilled spring tea with mint. They ate in silence, the kind of silence you only hear when people are too busy being surprised by flavor to make conversation. After the last bite, the man leaned back. That was... He paused. Better than anything I've paid gold for in the capital. The woman nodded slowly. Do you take coin? Sure, I said. System tracks it. I gestured to the little floating tray that now hovered beside the spoon. She placed a few silver pieces on it. It dinged. Transaction complete. Food rating, excellent. Reputation, +2. EXP, +15. And just like that, my bar filled slightly. After they left, 3 more guests arrived. A trio of young adventurers who'd gotten lost chasing rumors of a hidden dungeon nearby. They barely sat down before Sif gave them the full glare of judgment. To their credit, they stayed polite. One of them tried to offer Sif a bit of meat. Sif sniffed it, then slowly nudged the plate back toward me, tail stiff. I almost laughed. Yeah, sorry, he doesn't accept tips from strangers. By the time the moon rose, the tavern hit its guest cap for the day. I leaned back against the cart, watching the fire crackle. Sif lay beside me, head resting near my boots. Not a bad first day, I said. Sif blinked slowly. Then, I swear on all the kitchen gods, he burped. A deep, smug, meat-flavored burp. Elegant, as always, I muttered. Then a voice broke the peace. Hello? Someone called from the trees. A figure stepped into the clearing. A woman, maybe in her 20s, tall with sharp green eyes and travel-stained boots. She paused when she saw Sif. Oh, she said softly. So the rumors were true. I stood slowly. You're looking for food or trouble? She smiled faintly.
Both, maybe. Name's Kayla. I'm a courier. Heard a tavern popped up out of nowhere and had to see it for myself. Well, we're closed for the day, I said, glancing at the system display. The cap's been hit. She raised an eyebrow. Then maybe I'll just leave you this. She held out a note sealed with black wax. I didn't move. Sif growled low. She didn't flinch. Relax, she said calmly. It's not a threat. It's an invitation. Then she tossed the note at my feet, winked at Sif, and vanished back into the woods. System alert. You have received the mysterious invitation. Faction unlocked. The Broken Flame. Recommendation level, unknown. Would you like to open the message now? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at Sif. He stared back, then rolled onto his side and yawned. I'll take that as a vote for deal with it tomorrow, I muttered. And just like that, day one of the Wayfarer's Rest came to a close.
Part 5. The next morning, I sat by the river sipping warm tea while Sif hunted something in the distance. Judging by the terrified squawking echoing through the trees, it was either a very large bird or a very unlucky one. I held the black wax-sealed letter in my hands. It still hadn't vanished or burst into flames, which meant it probably wasn't cursed. Probably. I broke the seal. The parchment inside was surprisingly crisp, the ink a deep reddish brown that might have been stylish, or might have been blood. Fantasy worlds are fun like that. The message was simple. To the proprietor of the tavern by the river. You're not from here. We know. You stirred old magic. We noticed. If you're looking for coin, customers, and peace, fine. But if you're offering sanctuary to beasts or fugitives, then we have a problem. The Broken Flame. I stared at it for a long time. Well, that's subtle, I muttered. Sif returned with a large, very dead goose in his mouth. He dropped it near the fire pit and looked at me expectantly. Are you aware that someone's threatening us? He wagged his tail. Right. Priorities. Breakfast first. Cryptic cults later. After plucking the bird and starting the stew, I opened the system pantry. Something had unlocked overnight. New ingredients available. Ember leaf basil. Whisper root. Fire vein tomatoes. Mana-infused duck eggs. Each one had a glowing description box. Warning, fire vein tomatoes may cause mild hallucinations if consumed raw. Great. I reached for the basil instead. Customers trickled in. A traveling bard who paid in silver and a half song. A pair of silent elves who only nodded but left behind rare herbs in payment. Then, near dusk, an old woman arrived with a small wooden box. She didn't speak. Just sat, smiled, and waited patiently. I served her roast goose, herb tomatoes, and mint tea. She ate every bite without a word, then placed the box on the table and left. Inside was a single shimmering coin, gold, heavy, carved with runes I didn't recognize. System alert. Divine offering received. Your tavern has attracted the attention of a lesser god. Reputation +10. System favor increased. Sif stared at the coin, then at me, then licked it. I pulled it away. Don't you dare eat god money. He huffed and flopped down. That night, I sat by the fire, flipping the coin in one hand, rereading the cult's letter in the other. Someone's watching us, I said out loud. Sif didn't move. But someone else might be protecting us. Still no reaction. And you're just here for the meat, aren't you? Sif snorted in his sleep. Figures. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this tavern, this weird magical roadside soup shop in the middle of nowhere, had just become something more, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. Too late now.
It started with a breeze. Not a normal breeze, a divine breeze. The kind that didn't rustle leaves so much as whisper secrets into your skull. System alert. New divine request received. Lesser deity, the Hearth Mother. Request: prepare a comfort meal using at least 3 enchanted ingredients. Reward: unknown. Sif, chewing on a rib bone nearby, froze mid-gnaw. He looked up at me like, "Did you just make a pact with something?" I held up my hands. I didn't say yes yet. System prompt: accept quest. I thought for a moment, then shrugged. What's the worst that could happen? I hit accept. The sky didn't crack open, no angels sang, just a soft warmth in the air, like someone had lit a fireplace in the clouds. I turned to the pantry. New ingredients glowed. Glimmer grain rice, star root, sky milk? Really? I opened it anyway. It shimmered faintly, smelled like vanilla, and hummed with quiet power. Yeah, that tracks. I started cooking. Glimmer grain porridge simmered on the fire, rich with sky milk and a touch of caramelized star root. It smelled like nostalgia wrapped in a hug. Even Sif stopped chewing to sniff the air. Not for you, I said. He growled softly, offended. Fine, you can lick the spoon. The meal was done in 10 minutes. Just as I ladled it into a wooden bowl, the air shimmered. And the bowl vanished. System update. Request complete. The Hearth Mother is pleased. Reward unlocked. Blessing of warmth. All tavern meals now restore minor health. Well, that was useful. Also slightly terrifying. I sat down to take a breath. That's when the thunder of hooves echoed down the forest path. A royal carriage burst into view, escorted by 3 armored riders. The whole thing looked expensive enough to bankrupt a kingdom. Gold trim, silk curtains, even jeweled wheels. The lead knight dismounted and jogged to me. You, proprietor, we need help. A woman staggered out of the carriage behind him, pale, shaking, clutching her stomach. She's been poisoned, the knight yelled. Of course she had. I jumped into motion. Lay her down on the bench. Keep her upright. System pinged. Emergency recipe unlocked. Antidote broth. Ingredients: whisper root, shadow mint, sky milk, clean water. Estimated time: 6 minutes. Failure consequence: death. Great, I muttered. No pressure. Sif stood behind me, eyes alert, tail still, watching everything. I chopped and boiled like a man possessed. The smell was sharp, minty and earthy, with a sting like cold air in your lungs. System countdown: 2 minutes. The woman convulsed once. System countdown: 60 seconds. I poured the broth into a wooden cup. Drink this, I told her. She looked at me with cloudy eyes. Then slowly, she drank. Nothing happened for a heartbeat. Then 2. Then she let out a gasping cough and color returned to her cheeks. System update. Life saved. Reputation plus 20. Divine attention increased. Title unlocked. Forest healer. The knight grabbed my hands. By the gods, thank you. Actually, I said, pulling my hands back, it was mostly whisper root and panic, but I'll take the credit. They left a pouch of gold and a handwritten seal of noble gratitude. Sif sniffed the bag, licked it. I yanked it away. Again, stop licking currency. He sneezed at me. That night, I stared at the stars with a full stomach, a warm fire, and more reputation than I knew what to do with. But somewhere in the trees, something else was watching.
Part 7. Morning came with birdsong. Well, mostly birdsong. One of the chirps was suspiciously off-key, like a kazoo made of regret. But that might have just been the forest. I was sipping tea, scribbling new recipes on the back of a map, when Sif lifted his head. Ears up. tail stiff, and then he growled. Not the "I want bacon" kind of growl. The "someone just walked on my lawn uninvited" kind. A rustle came from the trees. Then a blur of motion. Something leapt straight over the tavern counter and landed in my firewood tile. I blinked. It was a fox. A massive one, about the size of a full-grown man. Jet black fur with silver tips, 9 tails that flicked like they had minds of their own, and glowing amber eyes that looked directly at me. Sif lunged. The fox didn't move. They stared at each other for a long, long moment. Then the fox sneezed. A puff of sparks filled the air. I took out my tea. "Okay," I said slowly. "Who are you?" The fox bowed, elegantly, and spoke. Yes, spoke. His voice was smooth, refined, dramatic. "I am Corwin, spirit beast of the eastern flame, chosen emissary of the Ember Grove." I blinked. "You broke into my tavern and stole my wood." He sniffed. "It was poorly stacked." Sif growled louder. Corwin yawned. A system alert popped up. "New companion detected. Corwin of the Ember Grove. Bonding conditions. Unknown. Disposition. Snobbish, curious, hungry." I stared at the screen, then at the fox, who had now curled up on a blanket like he owned the place. I sighed. "Fine, you stay out of the pantry and don't set anything on fire, and we're square." He sniffed again. "I prefer grilled poultry and rain-chilled water in a porcelain bowl." Sif looked at me like, I hate him already. "Welcome to the family," I muttered. Later that day, while I was cleaning dishes, I heard a whisper. Not the wind, not the gods. Just a voice. Soft. Sad. "Hello?" I turned, and there she was, flickering at the edge of the tavern porch. A young woman, pale, slightly transparent, eyes wide with confusion. She wore a simple dress, and her feet hovered just a few inches above the ground. Yep, ghost. I didn't scream. I did drop a cup. She flinched at the sound. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to startle you. I think I died near here." I rubbed my eyes. Sif stood frozen. Corwin watched with vague interest, one tail swaying like a pendulum. I stepped forward carefully. "Okay," I said. "Let's start with your name." She blinked slowly. "I don't remember." A system message appeared. "New guest. Spirit of the lost one. Condition. Bound to forest. Request. Warm meal and listening ear." I looked at the flickering girl. Then at the steaming pot of barley stew still simmering on the fire. "All right," I said. "One meal and one conversation coming up." She ate slowly, even though I wasn't sure how. Between spoonfuls, she talked. About faint memories, about cold nights, about a voice she followed that never answered. She smiled once. Just barely. You listen. That helps. The wind picked up. And she faded. System update. You have offered comfort to the forgotten. Reputation, +5. Favor, soul kindled. A single flower bloomed beside the fire pit. Sif sniffed it, then sat down beside it like a statue. Corwin muttered something about dramatic symbolism and curled back up. I watched the flames and thought, this place is weird.
But maybe it's good weird.
Part 8. It started with a scream. Not from a guest, from Corwin. He bolted across the clearing, fur scorched, 9 tails puffed up like angry dandelions. Right behind him, a glowing spirit deer the size of a carriage, antlers made of fire, hooves of light, and absolutely not in the mood. I blinked as Corwin dove behind the tavern. "What did you do?" He peeked out from behind a rain barrel. "It was just a sip. The shrine was unattended." "You drank from a sacred grove spring, didn't you?" Maybe." The deer let out a sound like thunder cracking open the sky. Sif growled. Corwin ducked lower. System alert. Emergency beast encounter. Appease or defend. I grabbed the nearest thing I had, a slice of apple pie. Yes, apple pie. I walked into the clearing, raised the plate, and prayed to whoever was watching that this world followed some kind of logic. The deer paused, sniffed, then stepped forward. It sniffed the pie, licked it once, then poof, the whole thing vanished. The air shifted. A warm breeze rustled the trees, and the deer dissolved into golden mist. System update. Crisis averted. Deity of the Grove accepts your offering. Reputation +10. Corwin's bond shaken. Behind me, Corwin exhaled. I knew it would work. I was testing you. I looked at him flatly. You owe me a pie. Later that evening, I found a second black lettered envelope nailed to the back door. Same seal, same ominous aura, but this time, it wasn't a warning. It was an offer. To the tavern keeper of the wilds, you've drawn attention, some of it dangerous, some useful. We can protect what you're building, if you agree to serve a different kind of hunger, the broken flame. P.S. Ghosts are fragile and easy to extinguish. I crumpled the letter. Sif watched me from the doorway, eyes glowing faintly. Corwin sat in the rafters, pretending not to care. The girl's spirit hadn't returned since her first visit. That night, I didn't cook. I dug. Literally. Behind the tavern, near the fire pit, I took a shovel and started clearing dirt. I didn't know why, just a feeling. After an hour, I hit something. Stone, worn smooth. A tablet, covered in old runes. System scan complete. Soul-kindled shrine discovered. This tavern rests on sacred ground. Bound spirits may find peace here. Protection against malice activated. I exhaled. Well, that explains a lot. I replaced the dirt carefully, cleaned up, and sat by the fire. No stew, no gods, just silence. Then, from the darkness, a voice. Thank you. I turned. The girl's spirit stood by the fire again. Stronger this time, clearer. She smiled. I remembered my name. It's Alara. I smiled back. Welcome home, Alara. Sif laid down gently beside her. Corwin looked away, muttering something about dust in his eyes, and the stars burned a little brighter above the tavern that night. Part 9. Sunlight. The next day started like any other. Corwin stealing my pillow for the 5th time in a row, Sif grumbling about it in Wolf, and Alara, now more solid than ever, quietly humming as she helped organize ingredients. Apparently, being a ghost didn't stop her from tidying things. She said it calmed her. I wasn't about to complain. Then, just before lunch, a guest arrived. Cloaked, hooded, limping. They sat at the farthest table and said only one word. Stew. I nodded, not pressing. They looked broken, worn, but also familiar. I ladled out a fresh bowl, added some wild herbs, and placed it gently in front of them. They didn't eat, just stared, then dropped something onto the table, a piece of black wax, the broken flame seal. Sif growled low. Before I could speak, the guest whispered, "They'll come tonight. They're after your beast." Then they slumped forward and collapsed. System alert. Toxin detected. Shadowbane. Lethality high. Time remaining 2 minutes. What the? I bolted for the pantry. Whisper root, sky milk, embergrass crushed into a thick paste. The guest was barely breathing. "Don't you die in my tavern," I muttered, forcing the antidote between their lips. 1 minute passed. 2. System update. Poison neutralized. Patient stable. The guests opened their eyes. "This is your warning." Then they passed out. I carried them to the spare cot in the back, locked the doors, then turned to Sif. "They're coming for you." Sif didn't flinch, just stared at me, golden eyes calm. He already knew. That night, the wind felt different, colder, darker. I stoked the fire higher. Corwin perched in the rafters, tail still for once, and Alara floated quietly by the door. And then, they came. 5 figures, robes like moving ink, eyes glowing under hoods. They didn't knock. They walked through the barrier like smoke until the shrine magic flared. System alert. Hostile intrusion detected. Soul-kindled protection engaged. The cultists flinched, forced back. But one raised a talisman, a jagged symbol burning red, and aimed it at Sif. He roared. Not barked, not growled. Roared. The kind of sound that cracked branches and shook bones. The cultist was flung back into a tree. The others hesitated, and I stepped forward with a frying pan in one hand and a ladle in the other. I wasn't a warrior, I was a cook. But this was my tavern. Leave now, or stay for dinner and see what happens when I overcook the guests. They ran, all but one, the one Sif had thrown. He lay broken, bleeding. I knelt beside him. Why target Sif? The man coughed. Too dangerous. Old bloodline. Gods fear it. Then he died. System update. New title acquired. Protector of the Wild Flame. Sif's bond strengthened. New ability unlocked. Howl of Warding. Sif looked at me, then leaned against my leg. Corwin muttered, "Well, that was dramatic." Alara sighed. "The broken flame won't stop now." "No," I said, "but neither will we." I looked around at the ruined porch, the fallen cultist, and the crackling fire behind us. Then I took a deep breath. Time to build something stronger.
Part 10. After the cult's attack, I spent the next morning repairing the tavern. Okay, fine, I watched Ilara and Sif do most of the work while I tried to reattach a shutter with the wrong kind of nails. Corwin was, naturally, perched on the roof, drinking tea that he didn't make. "You know," I muttered, wiping sweat from my forehead, "you could help." Corwin flicked his tail. "I'm emotionally supporting the aesthetic." Then came a glow, a soft golden hum in the air. System notice. Divine request fulfilled. Hospitality under threat. The Hearth Mother grants a blessing of shelter. The tavern shimmered. Wooden beams strengthened. The roof thickened with layered protection. A faint sigil carved itself above the doorframe. System update. Tavern upgrade. Level 2 achieved. New perks unlocked. Weatherproof comfort. Fortified barrier. Passive. Enhanced storage. Dimensional shelf access. I blinked. Did we just level up the house? Corwin sipped his tea. "You're welcome. You didn't do anything. I radiate charm. That counts." Later, I sat down with Sif by the hearth. He'd been quiet ever since the cultists called him dangerous. "Old bloodline," I said. "What does that mean?" Sif didn't answer right away.
Then finally, his voice echoed in my head, deep, low, and ancient. I was born of the first flame pack, once guardians of the gods. We were feared and hunted. Most were wiped out. I was spared, barely. I nodded slowly. Because you were too strong? Because I refused to become a weapon. We sat in silence. Then I offered him a chunk of smoked boar. He accepted without hesitation. Some things don't need words. That afternoon, Corwin tried to make tea. He claimed he wanted to feel useful. He used phoenix feather shavings, which exploded. I found myself lying on the porch covered in soot. Well, Corwin said, smoking lightly, the flavor was certainly bold. Sif coughed once, which might have been a laugh. Ilara floated by with a bucket and started helping clean up. It was oddly peaceful. Until a new figure approached from the woods. A woman in a hunter's cloak. Tall, calm, armed, and aiming a crossbow directly at Corwin. You, Fox, you're coming with me. Corwin didn't flinch. He casually licked a paw. I don't do autographs. Not a request, she said flatly. You stole a sacred ember from the Temple of Fire. There's a bounty on your tails. Tails plural. That's serious. Corwin yawned. Sif growled. Ilara floated between them. Let's all not kill each other on the porch, please. The hunter narrowed her eyes. I'm not here to fight, yet, but I'm staying nearby. If that fox so much as sneezes toward the temple again, he's mine. She dropped a sealed scroll on my table, then walked away. Corwin sniffed the scroll. Do I look like someone who steals sacred embers? Yes, we all answered at once. He looked offended. You wound me. I sighed, unrolling the scroll. System message. Royal bounty notice. Name, Corwin of the Ember Grove. Crime, sacred theft. Reward, 500 gold and 1 favor from the Temple of Fire. I looked at Corwin. He looked at me. Did you actually steal something? He shrugged. Technically, it was on fire, so it's not theft, it's rescue. Sif facepalmed. I poured myself a drink. It was going to be a long week. Part 11. The next few days were tense. The hunter camped just outside the woods, sharpening her blades like she was auditioning for an action novel. Corwin tiptoed around the tavern like a thief caught stealing his own snacks, which, let's be honest, he probably was. And Sif paced more than usual, always alert, always watching. But the strangest change, Ilara. She had started flickering again, like something was shifting. One morning, I found her standing alone in the pantry, staring at a spot on the floor. She didn't move when I came in. Ilara, she turned slowly. I remember more now. The day I died, it wasn't an accident. I paused. You were murdered? She shook her head. No, I was sacrificed. The room chilled. Even Corwin stopped chewing the beef jerky he had borrowed. Ilara continued, her voice flat. The broken flame used me, said it would awaken a soul gate near this forest. They called me a key. I ran. I almost made it, but they caught me. System alert. Spirit memory restored. Truth unlocked. Ilara's death ties to the cult. Hidden shrine reactivated. My fingers clenched around the wooden shelf. Corwin whispered, They made her a martyr for a door. Sif stood behind her now, silent, and still like a statue. I took a breath. Then it's time to close that door, for good. That night, I cooked. Not just food, a ritual meal. System quest activated. Flame-bound offering. Dish required to seal corrupted shrine. Ingredients: fireheart root, phoenix ash salt, whisperberry wine. Luckily, I had all three. Corwin had stolen the wine by mistake weeks ago. Sif had found the fireheart root while hunting, and the phoenix ash salt from Corwin's tea explosion. Go figure. The meal took 3 hours. The dish: flame-kissed sky roast, a spiced, fire-seared wild bird glaze in ember syrup, and served on wine-braised root mash. It shimmered faintly with magic. I placed it on the shrine stone behind the tavern. The wind stopped. Everything went still. Then, the flames rose, golden, soft, consuming. A figure stepped forward from the trees, cloaked in dark robes, hands glowing with fire. Cultist, high-ranking. You defile our work. You feed the gods while starving the flame. I stepped forward. Funny, you call it a flame, but all I see is rot. He raised his hand, fire gathering. But Sith was faster. He pounced. Corwin followed. Even Alara, glowing bright now, eyes fierce, surged forward and passed through the cultist, causing him to stagger and scream. System alert. Unbound spirit ability, memory burn. Enemy morale -50. I lifted a pot lid. Under it, a second flame-kissed sky roast. "Hey, fire boy," I said. He turned. "Catch!" I flung the burning hot lid straight at him. He didn't dodge in time. Steam? Screaming? A lot of flailing. He vanished into the forest, robe still smoking. System update. Cultist repelled. Tavern protected. Reputation +20. Ilara spirit stabilized. Afterwards, we sat in silence. The shrine glowed faintly, steady now. Sif rested with his head on my boot. Corwin nursed a tail singe and grumbled about a complete lack of appreciation for culinary combat. Ilara sat beside me on the steps. "I think I can stay now. Not because I'm stuck, but because I choose to." I smiled. "Good, because someone needs to keep Corwin from eating all the jerky." "Rude," Corwin muttered. We all laughed, and the tavern felt just a little more like home.
Part 12. It started with a knock. A real one this time. Not a cult ambush, not a ghost girl drifting through walls. An honest-to-goodness knock. I opened the tavern door expecting a lost traveler or some desperate adventurer. What I got was a man in a gold-trimmed green coat wearing a feathered hat so large it deserved its own postal code. He bowed so deeply I worried he'd tip forward and never recover. "Master Halcroft," he said with dramatic flair, "I bring a royal summons." Corwin peeked over my shoulder. "Tell him his hat's stealing oxygen." The man cleared his throat and held out a scroll. I opened it. "To the proprietor of the Forest Edge Tavern, you are formally invited to serve as guest chef at the upcoming Solstice Banquet. The event will be attended by regional nobles, adventurer guild leaders, and royal family members. Refusal will be noted, failure will be remembered. Sincerely, Lord Belmond Thorne, Steward of Crownlight City." I reread the last part. Failure will be remembered. "That's not ominous at all," I muttered. Corwin plucked the scroll from my hand. "Finally, a chance for my palate to be appreciated by royalty. You're wanted by 3 temples. And yet my charm endures." Sif looked like he wanted to eat the scroll. Alara floated in. "It could be dangerous, but it could also boost your reputation." System notice. New quest unlocked. The Solstice Banquet. Status: optional. Highly recommended. I sighed. Fine, I'll go. Before I could even start prepping for the banquet, trouble arrived in the form of a fox. Not our fox. A different one. White-furred, two tails, jewelry-laced, smug expression. She waltzed into the tavern like she owned the place. Corwin, she purred, still hiding in kitchens. Corwin's ears flattened. Elira. Oh no. Not an ex. Rival. Worse. She tossed her fur back like a shampoo commercial and looked around. So, this is where you've been sulking. Cozy, provincial. I stepped forward, blocking her view of the pantry. Can I help you? She batted her lashes. Oh, just came to see if the rumors were true. A mortal cook taming beasts and feeding gods. Sounds quaint. Corwin growled. Leave. But she was already gone in a swirl of foxfire and perfume. Sif sneezed. System notice. Fox Spirit Elira. Alignment. Chaotic neutral. Warning. May sabotage kitchen. Later that night, the Tavern God system chimed in for the first time in days. System alert. Divine evaluation commencing. Analyzing. Guest satisfaction. Spirit harmony. Meal impact. Chaos quotient. I didn't know what half of that meant, but okay. System result. Tavern rating 4.7 out of 5 divine stars. Status: recognized establishment. Perks unlocked. Ingredient whisper. Detect spoilage and flavor affinity. Passive aura, soothing hearth. Calms minor aggression within 20 meters. Title earned, keeper of the shared table. I blinked. Sif huffed, pleased. Corwin beamed. I told you we were divine material. Alara clapped softly, then paused. Wait, what's that noise? The front bell rang again. Another scroll. No hat this time. But this one was sealed in deep red wax. You've caught the eye of those who dine in shadows. Do not come to crown light alone. The feast may feed more than nobles. A friend of the forgotten flame. I stared at the message, then turned to my friends. I guess this banquet's gonna be more than fancy soup? Corwin cracked his knuckles. Sif growled low, protective. Alara said gently, then let's cook like legends. And for once, I believed we could.
The next few days felt like a countdown. The solstice banquet was in 5 days, which in cooking terms is both an eternity and not nearly enough time. I made a list, then a second list, then burned both when Corwin suggested we serve Essence of Starlight as a starter. You mean soup? I asked. No, essence, he said, dead serious. It's very trendy. We needed ingredients, rare ones. So I sent word to the traveling merchant, Hullis, who owed me a favor after I saved his donkey from choking on a turnip. Yes, that happened. In the meantime, Sif went hunting for something he called moon basil, and Alara helped sort through spices. Corwin? He was planning an emergency escape route through the chimney, just in case. 3 days before the banquet, a delivery arrived. A sealed wooden crate with no sender. On the lid, a carved symbol, one I hadn't seen before. Alara floated over and froze. That's cursed wood, used by druids for binding dark spirits. The crate vibrated faintly. Corwin sniffed it.
Well, that's comforting. I pried it open carefully. Inside, a single root. Long, black, twisted, pulsing slightly. System alert. Forbidden ingredient detected. Whisper root. Properties: enhances flavor, may induce visions, may attract entities. Warning: do not cook without protection. I closed the lid slowly. Well, that's getting locked in the cold cellar. Corwin was already halfway there carrying salt and sage leaves. Later that night, Sif returned, bloodied and silent. I rushed to him. What happened? He dropped a bag of herbs at my feet, then collapsed. System message: Beast companion status: wounded. Aggressor: unknown hunter. Condition: stabilizing. I cleaned his wounds. Alara used her spirit energy to ease his pain, and Corwin actually stayed quiet for once. When Sif woke, he looked at me with eyes glowing faintly. He's back. The one who branded me. The one who hunted your pack? He nodded. Corwin murmured, "We should skip the banquet and hunt him instead." "No," I said. "We go to the banquet. We feed kings. We make peace." Then I paused. "But if he shows up, we make roasted regret." The night before departure, Hollis finally arrived with his cart. It looked like it had survived a hurricane, but the ingredients were there. Fresh forest eel, silver-cap mushrooms, sky plum sugar, and even a tiny vial of storm honey. I handed him a warm cider and clapped him on the shoulder. "You're a lifesaver." He looked over his shoulder nervously. "Leon, word's getting around. Some say you're favored by the gods." I shrugged. Sort of. "Others say you're cursed, that something is following your tavern." Corwin coughed loudly. "Probably just bad seasoning." Hollis didn't laugh. He leaned in. "Leon, you've made enemies. Not just the cult. There are nobles who don't want a common tavern keeper climbing the ranks." I smiled politely. "Then we'll give them a meal they'll never forget." That night, I went outside, alone, stared up at the stars. Alara floated beside me. "You're worried?" "Yeah, but not about me." "About them?" I nodded. "I can handle pressure, I can improvise recipes, but Sif, Corwin, even you, this banquet puts targets on all of us." She was quiet, then said, "Then let's give them a reason to regret aiming." System update. Quest progress. Solstice banquet. Ingredients complete. Companions ready. Mystery factors high. Reputation stakes severe. Final step: travel to Crown Light City. I exhaled. Corwin passed behind me, dragging a suitcase twice his size. "Do they have good beds in the capital?" Sif followed, limping slightly but strong. Alara hovered beside the wagon, and I locked the tavern door behind us. We were off, to cook for kings and walk into the lion's den.
Part 14. Crown Light City was ridiculous. Towers of white stone, golden banners flapping in the wind, roads clean enough to eat off of. Not that I'd try, considering how many noble boots stomped through here. At the gates, guards stopped us. They looked at Sif like he was a weapon, and Corwin like he was a war crime. Then they saw the royal seal on my scroll and practically tripped over themselves opening the gates. "Welcome to the capital, Master Halcroft. Do enjoy your stay." It sounded polite, but the way his eyes darted to Sif said he fully expected a bloodbath. The palace banquet hall was already being prepped. Massive tables, crystal chandeliers, a kitchen so large I could get lost in it. And that was before I saw the spice wall. Alara appeared, invisible to everyone but me. "Half of these nobles are pretending not to recognize each other," she said, amused. Corwin added, "Other half are pretending not to be broke."
I turned toward the prep station and rolled up my sleeves. No politics, no drama, just food. System notification. Active dish slot. Opening meal. Suggested emotional impact. Comfort. Suggested magical affinity. Warmth, nostalgia. Bonus if it makes someone cry. Challenge accepted. I made sun-steeped stew. A humble dish. Root vegetables slow-cooked in forest broth, infused with sun-dried herbs, finished with a swirl of cloud cream butter. I plated in clay bowls, no silver, no crystal. Then I watched. One bite in, and silence fell. Then, the Duchess of Evermere began sobbing into her sleeve. The captain of the guard muttered, "Tastes like my mother's garden." Even the stone-faced High Chancellor blinked twice and coughed into a napkin. System alert. Meal impact. High emotional resonance. Status. Memory-linked flavor detected. Achievement. You made nobles cry. Reputation. +15. Corwin grinned. Should have charged extra. The rest of the evening was smooth. Too smooth. No sabotage, no exploding pots, not even a snide comment from the wine steward. Which is why I knew something was wrong. Sure enough, after the final dessert course, a skyberry tart with whisper leaf glaze, a servant approached me with a letter. It was sealed with black wax. The same wax as the whisper root box. Alara hovered close as I opened it. Inside, a single line. You fed the crying sheep. Soon you'll feed the flame. Underneath, the mark of the forgotten flame. I folded the letter slowly. Corwin looked at me. Do we stab someone or panic first? Neither. We finish the job. Then we find the rot. Later that night, I checked on the root. Still sealed, still pulsing faintly in its cold box. But when I touched the lid, I heard something. Faint. Like laughter. System warning. Whisper root has awakened. Sealing protocols weakening. Do not feed the root. I locked the box tighter, sealed it with ironweave cloth, and placed it in the icebox behind 7 jars of pickled turnips. No one goes back there willingly. The next morning, as I stepped out into the palace garden to get fresh air, a voice called out. Leon Halcroft, yes? I turned. A man in gold-trimmed robes stood before me. Thin, elegant, dangerous eyes. My name is Lord Varen. We've been watching your work. I stayed quiet. He smiled thinly. The nobles are impressed. But don't forget, when a man gains influence through kitchens, someone always wants to taste his downfall. I smiled politely. Appreciate the warning. Would you like a tart to go? He didn't answer. Just walked away. Corwin appeared next to me, holding 2 cups of coffee. One for you, and one for me in case this turns into poison tasting. System log. Reputation increased. Threat level, active. Mystery ingredient countdown, 3 days. Unseen variables, rising. The banquet wasn't over. Not really. And neither was the game behind it.
Part 15. 3 things happened the morning after the banquet. First, the palace chef tried to recruit me. Second, someone tried to poison me. And third, the whisper root moved. Let's start with the soup. I had just finished preparing a late breakfast for the palace staff, a restorative broth made from silverfin bones, black garlic, and ghost nettle. Calms nerves, aids digestion, and helps with royal hangovers. I handed a bowl to a tired guard who'd barely gotten 3 sips in before he turned pale and dropped his cup. I rushed over. "You okay?" He nodded slowly, then reached under his cloak and pulled out a throwing knife. Not to use it, but to show me. It's coated. Sure enough, the edge was slick with a clear sheen. Someone handed me the wrong blade. I was scheduled to serve wine, not stand behind your chair. The blade was meant for me. Someone had swapped the servers, and the soup slowed him down just enough to realize. System notification. Passive skill triggered. Soothing Hearth. Effect: calmed hostile intention. Outcome: assassination delayed. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. Ilara, ever helpful, said, "Technically, you saved your own life with soup. That's kind of poetic." Sif, now mostly healed, growled low and paced the garden like he was ready to chew through the palace walls. Corwin, holding the poisoned knife, muttered, "Next time we're pre-tasting everything, including scrolls." Then came the second disaster. Lord Varen called me to his chamber, the same smug noble from last night. I went, of course. I'm polite. He was waiting with a smile too wide and a robe too clean. "Leon Halcroft," he said, "we've discussed your performance. The Crown would like to offer you a title." I blinked. "What kind of title?" He opened a scroll. "Baron of Hearthgate, a minor territory in the west. Mostly forests and wolves. You'll love it." System prompt. Major story branch triggered. Title acceptance. Warning: accepting a title will tie you to noble politics and succession laws. I shook my head. "No thanks." Varen's smile didn't falter. "It's not really a request." "I know, but I'm more of a tavern guy than a throne guy." He narrowed his eyes. "This is a gift, and I'm regifting it to someone who cares." Corwin, waiting outside, whispered to Sif, "He's gonna get stabbed with a candlestick one of these days." That night, the whisper root started talking. Not in words, not really, but I could feel it. In the cellar, pulsing behind the iron weave and pickled turnips. The temperature dropped. The glass near it frosted, and when I opened the box a crack just to check it, I saw an eye. Not a real eye. A formation in the bark watching me. System alert. Sealing status critical. Whisper root will attempt possession in 2 days. Do not cook the root. Do not feed the root. Do not listen to the root. Too late. I already heard it whisper, "Let me in, chef. Let me season the world." The next morning, Ilara floated in pale. There's something under the palace. Something old. Cursed? Yes. Connected to the root? Definitely. Sif huffed and went to fetch his axe. Corwin was already packing snacks. If we're raiding crypts, I'm bringing cheese. System update. New quest branch, Root of Corruption. Objective: investigate the hidden chamber beneath Crown Light. Warning: your choices will shape future divine influence.
Suggested party, you'll need them all. I looked at the stairs descending into the old wine tunnels. Dark, damp, whispering. And I sighed. All I wanted was to cook in peace. Corwin grinned. And now you're the most dangerous soup lail in the kingdom.
Part 16. The wine tunnels under Crownlight Palace were old. Older than the city. Maybe older than some gods. Ilara led the way, her spirit light dimmed to a soft blue. Sif followed, tail twitching. Corwin brought a torch, 2 cheeses, and 1 crossbow that didn't belong to him. "He borrowed it," he whispered. I didn't ask. We reached a sealed archway, vines carved into the stone, curling around an emblem I'd seen before, the Whisper Roots mark. I touched it. The door opened with a creak that sounded hungry. System alert. Warning, ambient corruption levels rising. Spiritual interference detected. Possible passive possession. Great, Corwin muttered. I left my anti-possession socks at home. Inside was a chamber of polished stone. At the center, an altar. And on that altar, another root. Bigger, older, breathing slow. Yes, breathing. Around it, 4 black candles floated mid-air, burning with blue flame. Above the altar hung a mural. It showed a man in chef robes holding a spoon like a sword, facing a massive tree with eyes. Ilara hovered closer. This is a seal. Someone bound the Whisper Root long ago using cooking magic? I blinked. There's culinary sealing magic? Corwin gasped. I've wasted so much time in regular kitchens. Then the room pulsed, and Corwin dropped his torch. His eyes turned black, and he grinned. Oh no, I said. Possessed Corwin stepped forward. Faced with me, he growled, voice layered like 2 beings talking at once. Buddy, you already smell like expired spice rack. Try again. Possessed Corwin lunged. Sif tackled him, gently, like an older brother pinning his idiot sibling. Ilara hovered over him, chanted something old and echoing, and the black faded from his eyes. He blinked, confused. Why does my tongue taste like mushrooms and regret? I said. You were possessed. Did I do anything embarrassing? You asked to flavor our souls. He looked horrified. That's a no-tip offense. System update. Whisper root activity. Escalating. Seal weakening. Resolution required. Burn, bind, or bargain. I stepped toward the altar. The root shifted, sensing me. Its voice echoed in my mind again. Leon Halcroft, let me season your world. Power, fame, flavor, all yours. For a second, I considered it. Then, a door opened behind us, and a voice said, Please tell me you didn't almost accept a demonic herb. We turned. Standing there, holding a paper coffee cup, wearing a hoodie with "Retired, not expired" written on it, was the deadbeat god. Gavin, I said. You're late. He sipped his drink. Fashionably. He walked up to the altar, looked down at the root, and kicked it. The root screamed. It also caught fire. System alert. Divine intervention detected. Corruption source purged. We all stared. You could have done that the whole time? I asked. Gavin shrugged. I'm trying not to be the fixer. This is your story, not mine. But you were watching? Obviously. Corwin raised a hand. Can you always just drop-kick evil into submission? Gavin nodded. It's a very underused divine technique. The chamber rumbled. The root burned into ash. The mural above us glowed, then faded, and something fell from the ceiling. A small charm. A kitchen bell etched with runes. I caught it. System prompt. You have obtained Bell of the First Flame. Effect. Enhances all dishes with passive purification. Bonus. Wards off corruption within 10 meters. Nice, I muttered. That'll keep our pantry safe. Back in the light, as we walked out of the tunnels, I turned to Gavin. Are you sure you're not just bored? He grinned.
I am extremely bored. Why do you think I gave you cooking powers? Corwin whispered. So, he's the reason you got Isekai'd? Gavin sipped his coffee. Truck-kun just did the delivery. I placed the order. As we reached the surface, the system chimed. System update. Root crisis resolved. Reputation plus 35. Noble influence increased. Banquet arc complete. I looked at my team. A divine freeloader in a hoodie, a wolf god in fur and scars, a ghost princess floating serenely, and Corwin, still tasting mushrooms and regret. All right, I said, let's go home. And they all followed.
Part 17. We returned to our tavern in Emberstead with minimal fanfare. By minimal, I mean Sif howled at the moon for 2 minutes straight, Ilara floated a trail of glowing petals through the front gate, and Corwin tripped over a garden gnome and face-planted in the herb patch. I missed this place. The scent of charcoal, the clink of clean glass, the spice rack alphabetized exactly how I left it. Home. That piece lasted 4 minutes. Then a royal messenger arrived. The scroll was heavy, wax-sealed, and practically screamed bad news. I opened it. Corwin read over my shoulder. "Let it be taxes," he whispered, "or a parking fine. Not a title, please." It was a title. System alert. Royal decree issued by unanimous noble vote. Leon Halcroft is hereby named the Steward of the West Flame Frontier. Absolutely not, I said out loud. Sif tilted his head. That's a fancy name for mayor? I'm mayor of the cursed forest and the abandoned fortress beyond the howling cliffs, I muttered. Oh, Sif said. Congratulations. Corwin gasped. Do we get a new kitchen? The decree wasn't optional. With our reputation after the palace banquet and the rude incident, nobles wanted me out of the capital and somewhere more politically volatile. So naturally, they gave me an entire frontier town no one wanted to govern. Ilara floated by the window. There's corruption there, she said softly. I can feel it in the ley lines. I sighed. So, I said, guess we're expanding. Before we could even pack, a new problem arrived. A letter. Carried by a hawk with sunglasses. Yes, really. It landed, dropped the envelope, and gave me the bird version of a smug nod. Sif stared. That hawk has attitude. The letter was simple. I challenge you. Cooking contest. You, me, 1 week, your tavern, don't chicken out. Gavin. Underneath was a doodle of himself with a crown of bacon. I crumpled the caper slowly. Why is my life like this? Corwin grinned. Because you're legendary, boss. So I had now a cursed frontier town to inspect, a divine cooking contest to survive, and no idea what Gavin was planning. I tried to ignore it, but the next morning he showed up, in an apron that said, "Kiss the chef, he might be a god." System update. Divine duel initiated. 1 week until showdown. Rules. No divine power, just ingredients, skill, and taste. Reward, TBD. Gavin is being mysterious. I looked at him. You're actually doing this? He winked. I'm bored, and I found a new spatula. Sif sniffed him. You smell like burnt sugar and existential dread. He took it as a compliment. That afternoon, Ilara brought me something. A book. Old, bound in scaled leather, title etched in faded red. Flavors of the Forgotten Flame. Found buried under the tavern during renovations. She flipped to the first page. To cook with soul is to feed the gods. To cook with fire is to replace them. My hands tingled when I touched it. System prompt. Relic cookbook acquired. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Passive. Dishes gain elemental infusion randomly. Warning. Using forbidden recipes may draw attention. I looked at Ilara. Is this safe? She gave me a ghostly smile. Definitely not.
And so began the week of chaos. Corwin built an entire judging booth out of barrels. Sif roamed town challenging other magical beasts to sniff-offs. Gavin experimented with lava-roasted creme brulee and nearly melted the chimney. And me, I studied the cookbook and wondered if I was feeding fate itself.
Part 18. It began at dawn. The tavern courtyard had been converted into a makeshift arena. Tables arranged like an altar. Curious townsfolk gathering. Magical beasts forming a perimeter that looked suspiciously like a security line. Corwin held up 2 flags, one with a spoon, one with a burnt chicken wing. Representing the tavern, the underdog, the unwilling local legend, Leon Halcroft. The crowd clapped politely. And representing the gods, chaos, and crimes against flavor, Gavin the Eternal. The crowd clapped and stepped back cautiously. Gavin bowed deeply, flipping his apron to review a second design. This one said, "Food so good it might be a cult." We each had 5 dishes to prepare. No magic, no divine intervention, just skill. System prompt, challenge start, dish 1, appetizer. Theme, elemental fusion. I opened the forbidden cookbook and picked the safest recipe I could find. Sunfire beet tart with river herb aioli. Safe-ish. It involved roasted golden beets, a thin crust laced with ash pepper, and the garnish that occasionally sparkled. Gavin made crispy shadow eel bites with inferno aioli and black salt foam. Corwin tasted both, then dramatically spat Gavin's onto the ground. Tastes like regret and tax fraud. Point, Leon. Dish 2, soup. Theme, restoration. I went with an old favorite. Start anise bone broth with phoenix pepper. Slow cooked, clear, deep. It hummed in the bowl like a lullaby. Literally, the broth sang. Soft notes, attuned older than memory. Everyone froze when they tasted it. Ilara blinked and whispered, "That song, my mother used to sing that." I had no idea how. Gavin's soup? A smoked flame mushroom bisque served in a frozen bowl. Tasted like burnt ambition. Even Sif sniffed it and walked away. Point, Leon. Dish 3, main course. Theme, power. Gavin cracked his knuckles and summoned a griffin, named Basil. The griffin wore a cravat and carried a clipboard. "He's my sous chef / critic." Basil squawked, "Overseasoned, try again." "You haven't even tasted it," Gavin snapped. Basil, "I can smell your ego, that's enough." While Gavin argued with his sidekick, I served braised wyvern shank with shadow root mash and lightning glaze. The glaze actually sparked. Sif growled when it got too close. "Sorry, it's moody." Point, Leon. Dish 4, wild card. Gavin went big, literally. Summoned a floating spice chandelier. Made volcanic lamb over grief-infused lentils. The lentils wept. One of them cursed me. I served grilled skyfish with wild plum reduction and silent rice. It didn't look like much, but after one bite, Basil the Griffin burst into tears. "I have known heaven," he sobbed. Point, Leon. Final round. Dessert. Theme, choice. I paused. The Forbidden Cookbook had one recipe on the last page. No title, no ingredients. Just one line. Cook something only you can create. So I closed the book and made something I hadn't touched in years. A simple, warm milk custard infused with stardust honey, topped with candied thyme and broken caramel. My mother's recipe. Gavin made a molten chaos cake. It exploded. The tavern's right wall is still being repaired. Final judging. Everyone waited. Corwin stepped forward. and raised the spoon flag. Leon Halcroft wins the divine cook-off. Sif howled. Elara smiled. The townsfolk cheered. Gavin? He looked stunned for a second, then smiled. Thank the stars, he said. I blinked. You're not mad? Leon, he said, tossing his apron aside. I rigged this whole thing to lose. Why? He grinned. Because now I get to retire, officially. The system recognizes you as culinary champion of the realm. That gives you divine jurisdiction over food-based miracles. You're serious? He handed me a scroll. God-tier culinary license. Congratulations, he said. You're now the patron of Hearth and Flavor. I stared at him. You mean I've been Isekai'd, force-fed a system, hunted by nobles, almost possessed by a root, and challenged to a cook-off just so you can quit? Gavin nodded, sipping his drink. Exactly. You're welcome. Sif muttered, I like him. System update. Path chosen. Ascension through flavor. New title. Patron of Hearth and Flavor. Effect. Your dishes now inspire hope, courage, and path of regeneration. Side note, Gavin is now unemployed and extremely smug. Later that night, after the fire died down and the stars blinked into view, Gavin and I sat outside the tavern. He passed me a beer. You did good, kid. I smirked. You gonna keep showing up? He nodded. Whenever you need me, or when I get bored, or when the griffin eats your spice rack again. In the distance, Basil squawked, Your cumin is expired! I groaned, but I smiled, and we drank quietly under the stars. 2 gods, 1 tavern, and the world that finally tasted like home.
Thank you for sharing this chapter with us at Velvet Chapters Brew. Comment, like, and subscribe to see where the next page takes us.